Okay, we are live. How's everyone doing? So for those of you playing playback, it's a little bit more exciting when things start coming in a little bit. It's kind of a weird thing when you first start a live. I said that last time. So we will wait for a minute or two just to get some people on and to say hello. As I see people starting to come in. Say hello, where you're from. Shoot me a chat. Love to talk, answer questions. I will close the door over here. Or let me ask if somebody else can close the door. I wish it was that easy at home. Asking someone to do something and they actually do it. You don't have to ask 20 times. So let me know who's in and what's going on. Let me know where you're from. Any questions you might have. I'm here to answer them if you have them, any parenting questions. Conception Productions. Good to have you here. My daughter doesn't like eating. What can I do? What age is your daughter? That will have some factors. In fact, I just did a video about toddlers and toddlers not eating. So it does help if I understand the age. And if there is a specific reason that you know of why your daughter's not eating. It's a pretty open-ended question, so that's why I wanted to get a little bit more detail. So, okay, about to be 3. So, children do have, some children have some issues with the texture of the food. Some it is with the actual flavor of the food and they don't like it. Now, what I would ask is, does your child eat at all? In other words, like if you give her a cookie, will she eat the cookie? And so that could just be, preferences. And if she knows that, hey, if I don't eat this, or this for dinner, I know I'm going to get something else. So it's hard to answer without having, a little bit more conversation. But I would say that go back, there's a couple videos ago, if you look at the main page, that I talk about, a couple different scenarios where the child, what to do when they're not eating. So, yeah, some of it's, contextual, but in general, most kids at about, 2, 1.5, 2, they go through a very picky stage in which, eating is not as important that it may have been before. And quite often they're not growing as much. And that's a fact. They're not growing from a percentage standpoint as fast as they were when they were babies. So sometimes as babies, they're feeding every 3 hours, they're feeding constantly. And so when they're a toddler, we think that they should keep up the same schedule. Yeah. So Conception just said she likes snacks, but meals are hard to get her to eat. So what I would say is back off the meals a little bit. Keep in mind, look at it from your toddler's perspective that, you're trying obviously to teach your toddler that, hey, we sit down, we have meals, this is what we do. But a toddler's appetite is often different, and a toddler appetite might include just eating snacks. And I talk about in the video, it's a couple of videos ago, it's like how to, or for for toddlers that don't eat, do so many different things. It's hard to remember everything. Sorry. And sometimes they're just not as hungry. And so I think forcing them to eat in that manner it's probably going to be a battle. And you know what? You don't want food to be a battle. You don't want it to be a source of anxiety for the child. So I would suggest just to be okay with the snacking, and that maybe the snacks, you try to time them, that the snacks are during the time that you're having the meal. And eventually you may try to spread out the snacks a little bit more, or, the child's not going to go hungry. So I think, try that, see how it goes. Um, Gabrielle asks, how can I get my 3-month-old to sleep on her own, or is that too early for sleep training? I do think it's a little early. It's my opinion. I'm not a sleep expert. So I do think it's a little early. People are very, very aggressive, depends where you're from and, the surroundings you have about, making sure that the child kind of sleeps on their own and does that. And I understand it. We did that too, but it wasn't until, I think we were in the sort of 3, 4, 5 month that, the child started to do that. I think there's a couple different methods. You have to find out which method works for you. I'm not a proponent of any specific method. I don't endorse any sort of sleep training. So you have to find the one that works for you and your partner. But, having them be a little bit more independent, sort of going through the routine. I do have a video you can look back on the channel of how to get the baby to sleep through the night. And that might be helpful. See if that can work. I'm just trying to see, why is it hiding? Oh, here we go. Okay. Brandon had our baby at Saturday night at 11:50. Congratulations. Welcome to the club. M Shag, 2 months out. All right. How long do you think I have to get the house baby proofed? I'll be honest, we didn't baby proof much, other than, especially when the baby is brand new and just born, there's nothing to baby proof. The child, baby proofing is basically for when the child is moving around. That's when it's a concern. So the stairs, sharp corners, outlets, baby proofing only matters when the child, not only, disclaimer, but basically that's what baby proofing is when once the child starts to crawl and move and roll and, do things, then you start worrying about it. So you have plenty of time. Don't stress about it. Mike Jones asks, hey, Jason, how do you motivate a teenager to keep a job? My child has not been able to hold down a job and is generally unmotivated. So in general, I'm not quite an expert at teens yet. My children are going through it. And so I'm doing a lot of research and class and learning myself. But as far as motivation, part of it sometimes is that the child may not be interested in what they're doing. At 16, 17, motivation often just, it comes from within. That's something. But also, you can't, it's often hard for you to motivate them. What I would ask is have a conversation with your child and say, what are the types of things that you are interested in? And if they say, well, I don't know, nothing, say, well, if you did know, what would you be interested in? And maybe your child is into sports. Maybe they're into gaming. Maybe they are into, art or something. And you might be able to parlay that into something. Now, if they want something and they understand work ethic, they understand that they have to work in order to earn money, that might be a way to motivate them. But, motivation often comes from within. And I think a lot of it sometimes is not even just unmotivated. It's like, it's just not interesting. Who wants to, if they're just a regular teen, they want to go hang out with their friends. It's understandable. So the same thing too, I think there's another aspect of it is be mindful of the approach that you're taking. Don't put the teen down. Not saying that you are, just don't put them down. Sort of try to look at it from their perspective. Try to be a little bit empathetic and saying, I know you want to hang out with your friends or you just want to hang out and watch TV. But, here's what's important. It's important to learn these things and it's important to start. They don't have to know what they're going to do for the rest of their lives, but they should, maybe be interested in something and then figure out a way to work around that. And if it's not going and getting a specific job somewhere, then maybe it's something that they can do online or something. Let's give you an example. Let's say they're really into like clothes or sneakers or hats or whatever. they could potentially buy and sell that stuff on eBay. And that's going to probably earn them a lot more money than a $10, $7 an hour job somewhere. So I think you have to find something that really interests them and kind of start there. Tyler asks, my daughter is 6 weeks old and is doing awesome. Congratulations. Do you have any must-have items that most people might not think of for babies? No, I am the opposite. I don't think you need very much stuff. If you have watched some of my other videos, I think we waste too much money on things that we don't need. If you are not aware of it, you probably don't need it. In fact, we mostly buy things that we don't need. And so my suggestion is sort of get things as you need them. A lot of times we see things or other people tell us to get stuff and it's a waste. We had so much stuff that just sat unused, and at least for me, it was a waste of money a lot of times, or a waste of gifts. A lot of it was gifts. So let's see. Metal Phenom. Sorry, I'm laughing. My 1.5-year-old son licks everything. Is there any remedies? Wow. I don't know that I've ever had that question. I did have the question of hitting. And so usually it's showing them what to do instead of what not to do. So maybe it's sticking your tongue and closing their mouth lightly. I think it's over and over saying no lick, touch, or no lick, touch, and doing something like that. I don't know that I have an answer for that one. Wow, that's I'll have to research that one because that's an interesting one. I know it's common, where it happens. Like a child is often putting things in their mouth. They're very tactical. The other thing I will say is maybe you could, he could be licking it. Because he could be teething or because, he's trying to touch things. So you could try getting a, some sort of chew toy. Our son had problems with his teeth and when he was teething and was just drooling and all kinds of stuff. So we got teething biscuits, these little crackers that was just kind of like a puppy. And then we also froze these teething rings and we would freeze them and he would just love hanging and sucking on those. So that could be an answer. I would imagine eventually they grow out of that, but I don't think I've ever answered that question. That was unique. I'll have to find that out. Gabrielle, is it true what I hear about a 4-month sleep regression? Like I said, I'm not a sleep expert, but yes. I've had 6-month, 1 year, 2-year regressions. There's all kinds of things that happen. And just because, you have a pattern and everything's going wonderful, doesn't mean that it's going to, that's the wonderful thing about kids is that they surprise you all the time with new things or they regress, same thing with food, same thing with listening. It happens. So Christopher asked, new to the channel, what age range does this channel focus on? So the most popular, here's where I'll say kind of all ages as soon to be dads, new dads, and then toddler dads, and then young children dads. I make a lot of videos and I've made a lot of videos for everything. I, however, now have a parenting program, which is really for toddler and up. So if you have a child that is anywhere from 2 to 7, perfect for my parenting program. And I will say, if you have a toddler, you want to learn this stuff in depth, go to the website, daduniversity.com, click on parenting program, and let's talk. I'll talk to you about it. We'll have a phone call and we can discuss what's going on, see if it's a good fit. That in general, but there are videos that I have all the way from pre-child to young child. I will eventually probably make some teen videos too, as I am going through the teen years now with my children. So a lot of it is just learning and going through that process and studying and researching and understanding it because I want to make sure I'm providing good information. So Kerm KURM about the motivation. Focus on drive rather than motivation. That's good. You might see if internally you guys can talk, and if you have some information for that, that might be cool. Mike asks, I feel like my wife gives into my 2-year-old's temper tantrums when I try to ignore them. But that has him favoring her more than me now. Wrong to tell my wife she can't always be the good guy. Yes, it's wrong to say it like that. I think the approach is probably a big part of it, and having a conversation with your wife when you're not in the heat of it about different tactics, about maybe you've studied it, maybe you've watched, show her some of the videos. My most recent video about toddler discipline, I just launched that. That one specifically talks about this issue, about giving them the attention when they do something good versus not giving them attention when they do something wrong or their behavior is wrong. And yes, temper tantrums. To tell your wife, the wording that you're using could be interpreted a little bit incorrectly. Maybe is like, I know if it was my wife, me telling her something is not going to go over well. So it's a discussion and having that talk about like, hey, what is the best way to handle this? Because it seems like the problem continues. When I'm dealing with him, I ignore him and he stops. However, when I see that when we're doing it and you go over to him and you talk to him about it, or you give into it, he continues. And so I want to try to figure out a way that we can both be on the same page. You got to kind of say it in a really nice way. Maher Yusuf? Apologize if I didn't say it right. What are your thoughts on taking a 1-year-old on a plane these days? That's your own personal safety issue. If you're talking about whether it's COVID, I mean, I can tell you non-COVID, if COVID's not an issue, we took our child on the plane at 3 months. So he was breastfeeding the entire time. And people like my wife got up afterwards and people were like, oh, I didn't even know you had a baby there. Cause he slept the whole time. I will say a lot of people go during the day, some like to prefer at night cause then they sleep. That's up to you. But as far as your safety concerns about COVID and that's totally your call. I can't tell you what to do on that. I stay out of that argument. Let's see. Good questions though coming. There's a blitz of them here. Let's see. You guys have questions? Keep throwing them in. Also, let me know where you're from. I'm curious too. I've launched now 2 shorts. They're called the YouTube Shorts, where they're just like 20 seconds to a minute. Wanted to know what you guys thought of that. I've been experimenting with that, doing getting some help with the editing with my assistant, and trying to figure out what is attractive for people if they really like the short stuff versus the long. I know people like the long videos, but and we're not going to stop that. It's just trying to figure out some other additional videos that we can offer to people. Gabrielle, do you have any tips for picking the right schools? I think you visit. I mean, I'm assuming you mean like preschool or anything like that. No, I think you visit it and you get a feeling for what their teaching is like and what the people are going to be like, their philosophies. Everyone has different elements and aspects of what they feel is important. If somebody's like really concerned about academic, that's going to be something. I mean, I want my children at age 3, 4, 5 to have fun. Learning needs to be fun so that they continue to want to learn. That was really important. I wasn't so focused on like achievement and academic and I don't know. I when I drop my kids off still to this day, they're in 7th and 5th grade. My thing is have fun. have fun today. Like, enjoy yourself at school. Like, that's something that I think is important for children to keep on learning and to be a lifelong learners, is like they need to enjoy it. And that's almost for anything. Like, they're gonna stop doing things and not be interested if they don't enjoy it. So, they have to, I like schools that balance fun with learning and making things enjoyable. And I mean, that's why the best teachers are always those that are making it enjoyable and making the situation fun for the kids. At least that's my opinion. So Saucy Sauce, interesting, good name. My son turns 3 weeks tomorrow, and at what point should we start looking into getting a schedule more down pat? I heard the 6-week rule. Does that sound about right? Nothing is right. It's whatever you like. I personally am a schedule person. So for me and my wife, who also is a schedule person, we tried to get a schedule right away, but we're also flexible in that we knew that it wasn't going to happen right away. So I think you should try to get a schedule. A schedule is good for you. It's good for the child. So you try, but you also just are flexible enough to know that if it's not perfect, that's okay. But I would, yes, 3 weeks, try to get on a feeding schedule, try to get on a sleep schedule, but just know it's not going to be perfect. But yes, good. And don't worry about rules. This is what, you're supposed to have this done by this time. They're all just sort of, I don't know. I think there's a lot of pressure as parents when people start putting in rules and like, oh, when he's this age or she's this age, she should be doing this. Yes, there is some of that. And if a child is like excessively, developmentally delayed in those, you want to have that checked out. But at the same time, like, your child's not doing something by a perfect time. It's like, you don't need to stress about it yet. Cody, do you have any advice for a new stepdad? So Cody, I would ask, how old is the child or children? Because I think that has a factor, and I will answer your question. I appreciate the tip there. So what are your thoughts on giving young children ages 2 to 4 electronic devices like iPads or smartphones? I hate it. I'm going to take a stand, and I hate it. Now, on the other hand, I understand it. So as much as I hate it, I understand it. Screen time for children of that age is literally supposed to be like a half hour a day. Now, as a substitute for a television, a device might be, if it's a game of some kind, a device might be okay, but I would still pay attention to the screen time. Now, the pandemic changed everything for us in that my children, all of a sudden, it sped up their use of electronics by 2 or 3 years. We had no phone, no computers, no nothing except for what they had at school. They still don't have a phone, but it sped up the use of the computer tremendously because they were talking to their friends, they were using it for school, they were using all this stuff. I personally am of the philosophy that if you can delay device usage, delay it. Now, there are things that are approved by pediatricians and doctors and games and things like that, and that's fine, but I still think you pay attention to what the amount of screen time that they have. And I haven't seen any arguments for screen time being better than playing out in nature or using their, dexterity skills by picking up blocks and playing. I haven't seen that to say that, devices are better. I've seen the opposite. So yeah, I don't like it, but I understand it. I understand the ability to just give the kid a smartphone or a device and just, they're quiet, and mom and dad need a break. So I understand it. I just don't like it, but it is what it is. So Cody, 4-month-old baby girl, for the advice of a new stepdad. I think I'm not a stepdad, but what I would do is a lot of communication with their mom. And I think, that's something that a lot of the stuff is determined by her comfort. And so whether that's the, introduction, whether it's how you treat, as a 4-month-old, I'm going to guess that child is going to treat you. I mean, assuming she assumes that you have that role, she's going to, that child is going to assume that, not going to know you any different other than dad. So I don't know. I haven't been in that role. The only thing I can say is I've talked to men that have a little bit older kids and coming into a role where, they're trying to be a father figure, but they're not trying to take over the role of their existing dad, and having that respect. I think it's okay. I think it is respectful to, or I actually think it's important to be respectful to the biological parent, assuming that that parent wants to be in the child's life. My hope is that they do. However, in a situation like this, if they aren't, then obviously there's an excellent backup. In many situations, I always say for a dad to step up and do that. In many situations, that's because the woman is left with nobody. Obviously, this is a little different. So, there's a lot of dynamics here. The biological father, I just, every situation is different. I think it comes down to the comfort level of mom, the interaction of biological dad, and, that baby will, if the biological dad is involved, the child will have two dads and potentially more love in their life. And I think, you have to navigate it that way. It's everybody should love that child and want what's best for that child. And so now you might have an opinion on what is best, but that's something that I think you have to sort out with the family. And, if specific issues come up, let me know, shoot me an email. If there's biological dad involved or whatever, let me know. I'd be happy to try to answer that. But I think it's an individual situation. Hey, Chris, binge watching since we've been expecting in August. Awesome. Pandaware, love that name. Love the channel. Just subscribed and the channel helps. Awesome. Thank you guys. I really appreciate, everybody. That's why I wanted to come on too. It's, as much as you guys get a lot from the channel, I get a lot out of doing it. It's really enjoyable for me. And, it's, and these lives are fun too, because I actually get to interact and get to answer some questions, which, some of these questions are unique. Like the one about the kid licking. I mean, that's a good one. I haven't had that question. So let me know where you're from too. British James, if you had 30 seconds to summarize what makes traits in a father, what would you list? Many thanks in advance for your answer. I have a free webinar class, which actually goes over this. It's the strategies to be a better father and what's involved in that. But if I have to say, unconditional love, you love that child no matter what they become, no matter what they act like, doesn't matter. The behaviors, everything, you love that child no matter what, and they are aware that you love them no matter what. I would also say empathy. I say that a lot, to make sure you put yourself in the place of that child and look at the situations from your child's perspective. When you have a 3-year-old who is screaming and crying because of something, we often don't handle that in a great way. Just we as men don't. We get upset, we lose our patience, we take it personally. There's all kinds of situations that happen as a result. So unconditional love, empathy. 30 seconds is hard. I talk a lot, so 30 seconds is too quick. So Circle Cody regarding the stepdad. He doesn't want to be in her life. Me and her mother figured we're not going to use the word step till we think it's right. I'm definitely stick around, been learning a lot. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an individual. Strong family structure is important for sure. And, I don't know what that situation be is if at some point the father wants to be involved. And, I don't know. That's an individual decision. It's hard to imagine, when I look at it from a pureness standpoint of not just looking at it with pure love, the more people that love a child, especially if their influence is okay or good, that's wonderful. It's different if the person, has some difficulties or is not in a good situation. And so as a result, the child is not in a good situation. That's different. But it's always, or most often, beneficial to have more love for a child, that a child feels love from all different angles and all different types. They feel supported and they feel like they can lean on and talk to people, and having that group and support is very valuable. And that's why, sometimes when you see like step families, and they get along and they're able to, like the mom and the dad remarry, and then those families come together. Like, it's actually a beautiful thing. I can't imagine it's always easy, especially if you've been wronged or something, but putting away your ego and just expressing that love and sort of becoming like bigger about it. And I think it's impressive. It's very, very, it's a very pure place to be. And I think that, if more people could do that, families just put away their egos and such. I don't know. Sorry, I'm going on a soapbox there. Panda, due in September, can you speak on elevating yourself as a dad and person so that you are the best first-time dad you can be? This is what my parenting program is about. I do talk about tactical stuff, but if you are interested in the parenting program, even if you are having a new child, there's some things obviously that aren't going to apply, but a huge amount of what I do and all of my videos are about improving yourself. It's about improving your patience. It's about improving your communication. It's about improving your release of empathy and gratitude. That's what my videos are about, all of them. I mean, you go back and look at, some of the popular videos and a lot of the content. I do have a couple that say like, hey, do this, and this about tactical things like dressing a baby and diaper changing and all that. But it's like, that's not like the crucial stuff. The crucial stuff is like how you approach a situation. I will say, being the best dad you could be, so much of it is taking responsibility for your own actions. We blame our children for so many things, and I'm guilty of that. I mean, I'll come home, my kids are acting up, and then I'll say, hey, quiet down, you're bugging me, or, whatever. That's my issue. Like, that's my problem. I'm the one becoming annoyed. I'm the one who has a short temper. I'm the one who's yelling. It's me. And so I think as a parent, you have to understand and take responsibility for your own actions. And I think that that's a huge thing that, goes across just more than being a parent. It's as an employee, as a husband, all this. It's so, so important to take responsibility. And so when you learn to take responsibility, you put your ego aside, and I'll tell you what, my marriage is better. My relationship with my kids is better. My co-working skills are better. It's like, I take the responsibility for whatever it is. Most of the time I can ask others, but, taking responsibility for yourself and how you act and how you respond. And that's probably the best thing I can do. British James, thumbs up to you as well. Max Hong. So Max asked a good question. What is a suitable age to start parenting a child on the rights and wrongs as soon as they understand it? And when do they understand it? Typically is when they can somehow communicate. Now, what you're going to have to do is understand that expectations are going to be too high. A 2-year-old really doesn't understand that much. We think that they do. We think they're really smart. Oh, but he can talk, or she can read, or she can say the alphabet. Like, great, but they don't understand anything. And we, at the same time that we don't give them enough credit, we often give them too much credit. So it's like this weird dynamic. So I think as soon as you can is important, and that's what I call, it's what's called parenting versus just surviving when, they're in baby mode and all you're really worried about is, diapers, feeding, changing, sleeping. That's kind of not worried about that as much. And you're now starting to teach. And that's my parenting program that I've developed is, now you're in the parenting stage where you're starting to think about, how do I teach this child what to do? So again, I'll let everybody know, go to the website, daduniversity.com, click on parenting program, fill out the form, and let's have a conversation. The parenting program will change the way that you raise your child in a good way. Everything from communication, unconditional love, empathy. So not only teaching you how to do it, but exercises on homework, on doing these things repeatedly so that you really understand how they work and their impact. And then also weekly coaching with me. So you get to ask these questions in a live, private environment. This is live online. And so some people get their questions answered, some don't. But in the coaching, the live coaching, you get your questions answered for sure. And then we have discussions on a discussion board where you can have that. So I urge you to check it out. It doesn't cost anything to check it out. There is investment to do it, but the value there is tremendous. It will change the course of how you parent in an extremely positive way. So let's see what else. Other questions? Anyone throw those questions up there? Also, let me know where you're coming from. Pandas in Denver, Colorado. Awesome. I'm guessing British James, you're in New York. I love that name, British James. Glad the videos are helping. Hey, you guys have some good questions here. Let me go through. The other thing too is if you have things that you want to know about, for future videos, let me know that too. Feedback is always welcome. Many of my videos have turned out as a result of people asking questions and me understanding like, hey, more people want to know that. I don't always know what people want to hear. A lot of the videos are created based on the fact of like, it's something that I learned and transformed and now have a much better understanding of how to do things. And so a lot of it is my own transformation. That's what my program is. It's my own personal transformation. I was a yeller. I was impatient. I would get upset a lot. I was short. I was trying to be controlling. There's so many things that I look back now that I wish I would have changed earlier, but I'm happy that I changed it, and then as a result, I'm a happier guy, happier parent, better parent, more calm, more confident. That's the thing too, is going into a situation and knowing how to deal with a situation. And on the other side too, being okay with not knowing how to do it. I was just talking about this to somebody that, if I don't know how to solve a situation, I just say that. I just say, hey, how should we solve this? What do you think we should do? So circle Cody. I'm a bit worried about public schooling and what it's becoming. What's your thoughts on private and homeschooling? So it's hard for me to speak to that. I live in an area where the public schools are excellent. And I mean, so it's hard for me to say that, even a private school or homeschooling, because it doesn't make sense where I live. I mean, our teachers are great, the curriculum's great. My both of children, my daughter's still in it, are in a bilingual program, and it's part of a public school. And I mean, they've learned Spanish since the time they were in kindergarten, and so they're bilingual. They speak Spanish and English, and as a result of the school, the teachers have been wonderful. I mean, every year we're just really lucky. I mean, we also chose an area, that's the case, but so I can't really speak to that. I think, it depends on where you're located, of course. There are some areas where, public schools are not great. But then it becomes a financial issue too, where, private schooling is very expensive in some aspects. And same with homeschooling. So I don't know that I can answer that. I wish I could. Sometimes I wish I could answer every question, but so Panda asks, financial considerations are very important. Can I be a good dad when my job and career aren't what I wanted at this point in life? It's an interesting question. If your career and your job is not what you wanted, can you be a good dad? Yes. I mean, being a good dad, 90% of it is non-financial. I mean, sure, being a provider, many men, most often, if you stay at home, then that's different if your wife works. But for anybody who's working, we value our contribution in that way, that financially you're contributing. And so, that's how we evaluate ourselves sometimes as fathers. But contribution financially is just one small aspect of being a father. Not to say it's not important, but you'll have, financially set families where dads are not very good. And then you have very low income families where the fathers are amazing. So the dynamic can be whatever. I don't know that financial situation doesn't dictate whether you're a good father or not. Now, it can dictate where you are mentally, and you being in a place where you feel good and you feel good about what you're doing and pride about it and such, and you're contributing in some way, whether that is like to society or financially or you're whatever, helping people or making money or whatever, then that can be different. And so certainly you're going to want to look at that and modify that. That was part of, for me, I don't know if you've seen my stories on like how I started Dad University. I've got a couple videos and also interviews on it. But I've been in internet marketing for 20 something years, and my mother passed away 10 years ago. Wow, it's been that long. And basically I looked at my situation and was like, is this all I'm going to do? Like, I like it. I like helping people. I'm an internet marketing expert. I consult. But is that really like, am I fulfilled enough? And so that's when I started a dad group, and just like that part was really fulfilling. And then it expanded into a podcast, and then I started doing videos, and then I started getting requests for things and people contacting me and sponsorships and things. And then I created my course, and like it evolved out of me really loving what I'm doing. But it was that event, the horrible event of my mother passing away, because she was a relationship expert. I said, gosh, look how much she contributed to this world. And so I wanted to do something similar. So yeah, I understand sometimes there's angst when you don't feel like it's as fulfilling or you're contributing as much. And so you have to balance that, but it's never too late. It's never too late to switch careers, to go into something that is more interesting, to have a job in which you have more time, and maybe you make a little less money, but you have more time with your family if that's important to you. Or when you are with your family, if you only have a little bit, then you just make that quality time and you work your butt off, and that's important to you too. I mean, for me, work is really important, and my wife knows that, and my children know that, but at the same time, then when I'm a dad, I want to make sure I make that time count, Panda, this is a great chat. Thank you. It's like a men's group. Let's see what's going on. Anthony, my 1-year-old son banging his head against his crib, normal. I know that kids will do that. Sometimes it's a tactical thing. Sometimes they're trying to just make noise. I would be mindful of that. You might want to contact, pediatrician if there is something where he's doing it really hard, to make sure he doesn't hurt himself. But I would also show him soft, so instead of hitting his head, grab his hand and say soft, and touch the crib in a nice way and say soft, or, light touch, whatever, how you want to do it. Show him what to do. Instead of focusing on what not to do, show him what to do. That's always really, really important. Drunk Guitar Man, awesome name. First time dad in about a week. Wondering if you have any quick bits of advice about preparing for the hospital and labor. I could probably better do that with my video that says preparing for delivery or what to do in the delivery room. Got some of those videos. You just got to go back to the main channel area where all the videos are. You can kind of scroll through. There's a ton, because some of them are pretty specific. But preparing for hospital and labor, a lot of it is just being supportive, being the advocate for your significant other, of just being there and being supportive. Enjoy the moment. Things might be stressful, but just kind of know that this is just an experience that you want to be present for, and you want to be there, and just soak it in, and then also, let people know ahead of time, you're going into this, you might be not available for a while, at least a couple days, and people are usually respectful of that, although family sometimes isn't, but you want to, you want to take that time to just enjoy it. So I mean, those videos, I'm trying to remember back, the biggest things were just knowing that it can be chaotic, and just enjoy that time. It goes by really, really fast. I mean, it's hard for me now, even, I have pictures. My children are 10 and 12. It's hard, other than the pictures, for me. I mean, granted, my memory is not wonderful. I can't even remember what I did last week. Just of going back and remembering all of those situations of what the labor was like in the delivery room. And, I just took a lot of pictures, a couple videos. So Charles, videos are great. Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Well, welcome. What would be your number one advice for first-time dads with not much hands-on baby experience besides nieces and nephews? I didn't have any experience with kids when my child was born. So you can go from zero now to dad university expert. It's just about time and putting in the time, and know that you're not going to be an expert, and don't worry about it. Children, you become an expert with experience. It's like a sport, an art, music, whatever, your job. The first day, you're not good at it. Nothing. You're not good at anything first time. And it takes time. And parenting's the same way. You make a lot of mistakes. You learn from your mistakes. Know that mistakes are part of parenting. And, learn from them and move on. And just don't beat yourself up over it. And know that, you're not the only person who's experienced this. A lot of times we feel alone, but look at this chat. I mean, all these guys are coming on here and I was in that situation, or I've been there, and that's what it is. Cody, Dr. Jordan Peterson. Well, thank you. I do watch his stuff. He's really good. He has a lot of good information. Max had asked, would you be linking research-based information to your videos, or is it experience-based? A lot of times it is both. If there is some part of research specific to that video, I do like to include it. A lot of mine is experience-based A lot of it is research based, but what I would say is go back if you want to look at like the foundations of a lot of the teachings that I have. It's Rudolf Dreikers and Alfred Adler. They are the sort of founders of individual psychology, and a lot of, did I say it wrong again? Oh, we're like editing a bunch of my bloopers, and so I've said things wrong so many times, and so it's funny. I've got someone over here. But Dreikers and Alfred Adler, they are the founders of this psychology, and whether it's positive discipline, redirecting children's behavior, joy of parenting, there's a lot of positive discipline is probably one of the most famous. These philosophies are all kind of based on that psychology, and mine is the same. I've been through these courses and these trainings and such. And then I've had my own experience, how I was raised, which was also in this manner, and then now how I am teaching my own kids. And so, and as an example, like my mentor, Susie Walton, who had taught redirecting children's behavior and then now does joy of parenting, she has taught this for over 20 something years. And so she has kids and their children. So now the, grandkids, I guess you could call it, but kids of kids who have all been taught this way, and seeing the results of when children are raised in this type of, parenting style, that, the results are excellent. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't mind. A lot of people ask like, well, hey, did you just pull this out of your intestinal tract? Sometimes things might be, but sometimes it's an opinion. And I try to clarify that when it's like, an opinion, but also if you were here earlier, you'll also see that when somebody has, a question and I don't have any idea about it, no experience, I don't try to answer it. I'm not going to answer something I don't know, but I might give my opinion. Like the one guy asked about going on a plane, like that was just my opinion, but I don't even want to give my opinion on that. Let's see. Ryan, good to see you. Mike Lopez. When did you realize your patience was low and you were yelling too much? Because the question was like, I'm curious when you started making the switch and working on being more patient and yelling less as a parent, what was the cause? The cause was me being too stressed, arguing with my wife, noticing, and just self-reflection. I mean, my children, I think it was probably when I took my first parenting class. I think my children were 3 and 1. And it was right around the time I was starting the Dad University. At that time, it was called Dudes to Dads. It was just a meetup group. And I just didn't feel good. I was coming home feeling stressed. Instead of like enjoying my children, I felt very stressed out about it and really just got sick of it. I didn't want to feel that way. I don't, probably could have been earlier. Some of the early journey was also just, learning how much of my marriage and the relationship of with my children was up to me, and, not relying on my wife or my children to please me, to, do what I say, to make sure that I was happy, whatever it is, like that's not their job. And I slowly began to study and research and learn how important it was for me to take responsibility for myself. And I always thought, even before all this, like I thought I would be a good dad. I was a good husband. And I'd like to think that I was. At the same time, there was so much room for improvement. And there always is. And so, yeah, I think it's important at any time. If you are questioning it, it's time. There's no reason to wait to be better and to improve yourself. Ryan, it's getting warm in here. Ryan, what would you recommend in creating a bond with your newborn, as my work requires me to be away from home for extended time periods? So a newborn is very difficult to bond with because, especially if you're not the one spending a lot of time with them, there's not a lot of feedback right away. But it is time. Time is what bonds. And so what I would say is that if you do get the time, you just make it count. If it's a little amount of time, then that's okay, but just make it count. Try not to be distracted, try to be focused, try to be mentally and physically present. Just try to concentrate on the time that you do have. And, if you're away, then you're away. There's nothing you can do about that. So I think being present physically, emotionally, mentally, all of those things is important when you are with a child. And that goes for anybody, whether they're away from their children for extended period of time or not. I feel that on occasion, and I just have to recalibrate. I was even like this weekend, there are times, especially now that my children are getting older, they play with their friends, they go out and do their own thing. And I had felt the last, week or so, just a little bit of a disconnect. I hadn't spent as much time, quality time, with either of my children. There's a lot going on, whether it's work or building some things at home. There's all kinds of things happening. And so I didn't feel like I had spent a lot of time with them. And so this weekend, I just wanted to make it a point to just sit and talk and play a game or, and do something and reconnect a little bit. And I did. And so instead of me, which, I always have things I can do. I always can make more videos. I always can do more scripting and making things in my course and, doing all kinds of stuff, more content. But it wasn't, I also looked at it and said, I got to recalibrate this. I need to spend some time. And that wasn't even for them. That was for me. There are other situations, obviously, and I have those conversations with my kids where, hey, how are you feeling about our time spent right now? And my children are now used to being able to articulate that because we've been doing it for so long that if they really want to hang out, then I will make whatever effort I can to hang out. Abdul's Clues. Do you bring your kids to hang out with you and your friends? It depends. People with no children will not understand, or typically, especially men, they don't really have any connection to doing that. And so for them, it's kind of boring or it's not that exciting. If your option is well, you don't have another option because somebody else isn't going to, watch your child, well, then you do that. But I think also too, that it is often difficult to enjoy the time with your friends and then enjoy the time with your kids. So if your kids are coming with you, it's basically just because you can't do anything else with them. You're not going to have any quality time with your child, most likely, when you're hanging out with your friends, because you want to hang out with your friends. So that's an individual decision. I think what happens is that you end up making friends with people who have children, and then your children are occupied with playing with their friends or their children. Their children, and you're hanging out with your friends. And so we did that a lot where, we would hang out with another couple and they have children. And so our kids would interact while we hang out and have adult discussion, Scott asks, what parenting classes do you recommend the most before the baby comes? Well, I sell my own parenting class. So I guess I could, but there isn't any that I endorse. I don't endorse any other parenting classes. I think if, a hospital is offering you a class or, there's classes online, I think it's all good. I don't think there's any harm in that. I'd love to think that mine is the best one that there is. However, portions of it are not going to apply to prior to the baby, but a large portion of it is. It's fatherhood mindset. It's how are you approaching fatherhood? communication, which affects you and your partner. Like that's a huge section that I talk about in my course. So yeah, I don't necessarily endorse any other courses. I'll be candid. I didn't take a course prior just because I didn't know of any. It wasn't even, I didn't know that there was. And then, there was some like daddy courses where they would have, some like diaper changing and some other things. But other than that, there wasn't much. We're coming up on an hour here. I only have a couple minutes. Mike says in Florida, the hospital had parenting classes. Yeah, sometimes the hospitals do. And so, that could be something. If the hospital has it, that's great. Usually they're either really low cost or free. But there's resources online, go and watch my videos. I have a webinar that you can go through that's going to help. So yeah, Mike just made a good point. If you are in here or have seen this video, be sure to turn your notifications on. You're going to want to subscribe, obviously, but turn your notifications on so that you make sure that if we do another one of these lives, you get notified so that you can come in and join us. So if there's any other questions that come up, go to the website. You can go to the contact there. Shoot me an email. I think you can on the website. If not, we'll have to build that into it to make sure that you can contact. But shoot me an email, info@daduniversity.com, and just put attention Jason, and I'll be sure to get it. And that's it. Want to thank everybody coming in live. This has been fun. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do another one. I'm going to go turn the fan on because it's really hot. I've got lights here and it's really, really warm, but want to thank everyone for joining us here, and we will see you next time. Take care, guys.